Hello, my name's Toby Baring. I'm a consultant orthopaedic surgeon at OneWelbeck in central London.
Hi, my name's Pete Gillespie. I'm head of snow sports here at the Snow Centre in Hemel Hempstead, and I'm a level 4 ski instructor.
Today we're going to be talking about how to prepare yourself for your forthcoming ski holiday and try and minimise the chance of getting a nasty injury. So Peter, certainly as orthopaedic surgeons, the most common injury probably from ski holidays we see are knee injuries. From your point of view, what in terms of technique, what do you think is the best thing to prevent those sort of injuries occurring?
Okay, Toby, I would say posture, posture, posture. If we get the ground level correct, we get people standing well on the skis, they're less likely to have a knee injury. As you'll know, often the knee is damaged by people moving backwards and twisting. So if we can get people centered over the middle of their skis and get that ingrained in their technique, they're in a much better way to prevent the injury.
And bending your knees helps as well, obviously. That's
definitely flex joints. So if we flex the joints at the ankle and knee and slightly at the hip, then the leg has got a little bit more flexibility. If the leg is stretched, obviously you've run out of all flexibility, so the chance of injury is much higher.
We know that building up your quadriceps has a really protective effect on the knees. What exercise do you tend to recommend are best for doing that?
Personally, I love cycling, swimming and hill walking. I think they're accessible to everybody. Doesn't require a gym, especially hill walking. Just find a hill and walk up and down it. And swimming, obviously, almost every town's got a swimming pool. That's good for general all-round fitness as well, your cardio as well.
Yeah, so talking more specifics in terms of knees, probably the most common one is the ACL.
Absolutely.
And that's typically done with a twisting injury with the knee either straight or quite flexed. And along with that, you often get an injury to what we call the meniscus, which are these rings of cartilage that sit on each side of the knee and are sort of, I suppose, packing tissue, trying to increase the amount of contact between the surfaces of the knee. In terms of, again, in terms of the technique, is there anything you would advise?
Yeah, I think really focusing on steering correctly. So to steer, we need to create a lever with the leg. We create a lever with the leg by creating a flex joint using ankle, knee, and slightly with the hip. If you imagine an arm, it's very similar to a leg in some respects. If it's flexed, it's got more power. If it's straight, then the skier or the person has to search further up to find the twist, and unfortunately that is where the injury happens. People trying to ski with the legs too straight and also trying to rotate the body in. So if we look here, if you were to steer your skis, you would flex, wouldn't you? So you'd drop like that, and then your skis would go around the curve much easier and much safer. If you're standing tall and you went into the turn and twisted your body, that's going to run down through your legs as well.
So it's key to have your body facing downhill at all times.
Separate your body, so your legs will steer a bit further around the turn than your body. That way you're creating this kind of natural torque, which really helps in projecting energy into the next turn, not through the knees. So one of the most typical things we see with learners is the way they stand above their feet. Quite often, obviously, the snow is alien to them, so as the feet move off and slide, they tend to go back. And you've seen that probably, Charlotte, you probably experienced that in your early days where we tend to do this. That obviously leaves you quite exposed in terms of balance. So to maintain good balance, the upper body tips forward slightly, the joints are flexed, and then what we're looking for is that we're balanced over the middle of our foot initially. So from there, I would imagine from there, you would be able to do a little jump up and land, perfect, and still remain balanced. Now we're going to try that, both of us will do it together, we're going to do it off center. So lean back a bit for me. Now try the same exercise. And you see how awkward it is. And we're talking that much off balance will make a difference. Okay, Charlotte, so what we're going to do is work on our posture as we're skiing across. We know we want to have the joints flexed from the ankle, knee, the hip, upper body tipped slightly forward, arms and hands in front of the body and the back slightly rounded. That way I can stand through the middle of the skis and I'm much more balanced when I want to start making movements. So just see if you can make a slide across here, showing that great balance. Brilliant, well done. Okay, Charlotte, so this time we're going to have a go and we're going to see what it would be like to do this not so well balanced. So that would be upright, leaning back, using the back of the boots. Really, the only thing holding you up would be the back of the boot. So not really demonstrating great posture. So this is a demonstration of what we don't want to do. So to summarise how to protect the knee, Toby, I think posture is so important. It's something I work on with my guests all the time, actually at all levels, whether it be a beginner for the first time or an expert skier that's ever evolving. I think if people stand well, then obviously they stress the joints less, especially the knee. And we know also that just general fitness, it doesn't have to be a superhuman fitness regime, but if people do a bit of walking up and down the stairs, they're going to start to build strength in the knees. And as a medic, you'll know, obviously more muscle around the knee is going to help protect it.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely key. And maybe add in the wall sit, although slightly painful exercise to do, is a very effective way of strengthening the quads.
Definitely.
So if we're talking about shoulder injuries, probably the most common ones we see at OneWelbeck are shoulder dislocations and tendon injuries. The tendons in the shoulder are known as the rotator cuff. Is there anything we can do to minimise injuries to the shoulder?
Yeah, of course. I think what we do as ski instructors is more about advice. So when people are learning with us, again at all levels, we try and teach them to fall properly if there's such a thing. So really the tendency, I think, would be to stretch the arms out. We ask people to fold the arms into their body and actually try and put their hip on the ground. So almost like a kind of hip dump. That way, these bits are protected. Obviously, when you're in a fall, things take over. And I think most commonly people panic. So if we can train that in an early stage, then we're going to have a better result, I think.
So you're almost trying to do a sort of somersault fall.
Yes, basically, yeah.
And land on the back. Yeah.
The best part to fall on, obviously, is your bum.
And certainly, from the point of view of shoulder instability, shoulder dislocations, keeping the arms down by your side is much better. And the sort of group of patients who are most at risk are the people who've had previous shoulder dislocations. If we can keep their arms out from this position, which is probably this is the position we call the position of apprehension. This position, the shoulders are most unstable, tend to dislocate in that position. So that would certainly be of benefit. It's sort of quite difficult in the heat of the moment, isn't it, to remember how to fall? But I think that's really useful to sort of try and do that somersault pose or posture as you're coming down to hit the ground.
Absolutely, Toby. I think, as you said there, if you can just draw the hands in a little bit close to the body and place the hip on the ground, that's going to prevent, hopefully, any major accidents. But when we're skiing and we fall, obviously we know that instinct takes over, so it does take a bit of training.
Yeah. And also, by not putting your hands out straight, you're also going to probably minimise the risk of injury to your wrists and your elbows.
Yeah.
So, leaning on to falling out outstretched hands, obviously your wrists are a really high risk of fracture, especially, snowboarders are the ones who tend to do a lot of falling forward. And from an orthopaedic surgeon's point of view, I think it's worthwhile considering wearing wrist protectors. They fit quite well underneath your gloves. What's your view on that, Pete?
Well, you're quite right. The snowboarders tend to be the guys and girls that injure their thumbs because they either fall forward or they fall backwards, and they generally put their hand out to support them. I have a team here of snowboard instructors, and some will use wrist guards, some won't. I leave it to them to decide that, but actually it sounds quite logical to me that if you're protecting that part of your body. In terms of skiing, what we would say is that we would try to keep our hands clenched, but often, obviously when you're skiing, you're holding a pole, so you've got something to hang on to as well. I know you're going to talk a bit about how to hold the pole correctly, so maybe that's a good time to cut straight to that, Toby.
So this is Charlotte. The way Charlotte's holding her pole at the moment is the way we would actually advise against, because if your pole gets caught in netting or something else, it pulls down like that and it pulls the thumb out of the way. You can end up with an injury called a skier's thumb, which is rupture of one of the ligaments. So that we would advise that actually switch where the strap comes around, and actually you grab the glove over the top of the strap and then hold it against the pole handle. And that's the best way to prevent injury to your thumb.
There's also a technical aspect to why you might do that as well, and it actually gives you more support. So if Charlotte, if you were hooning it down some bumps right now and you're pole planting, that gives you more support here as well when the pole is held this way. So definitely agree, that's the best way to hold your pole.
So if we're going to talk about ankle fractures, in skiing we don't really see ankle fractures, do we? I think the boots are very good these days.
Yeah, massive evolution in ski boots over many years. So now they're kind of quite high, they come up to about here, it protects the ankle. In fact, these ones these days are very lightweight as well, so you're not getting extra stress on the ankle. If you go back to the 50s when they started skiing in leather boots, that was a common injury because the boot was so flimsy and actually quite low. Yeah. And I guess the stiffness of a ski boot is what's helping to protect the ankle. Probably why we see more in the knees these days, because the injuries correct up a little bit.
The force is transferred up to the next joint. But if you look at actually snowboarding, where the boots are softer, they allow a lot more movement at the the ankle joint, you do get this particular fracture it's actually called a snowboarder's fracture, probably because of it occurs through a hyperflexion of the ankle joint. And you can certainly prepare yourself pre-season, especially if you've got a history of ankle instability, which is very common. If you often had injuries with ankle sprains in the past, doing stuff on a wobble board, that is very helpful. It strengthens the tendons up around the ankle joint, and that's same principles in terms of strengthening the quads around the knee. It just, the more muscle you can build around the joint, the more protective the muscles are going to be to that joint. Obviously, with COVID having affected the access to sporting facilities over the last year, a lot of us are somewhat under-exercised. So we're just going to go through some top tips for what we can do in preparation for our ski holidays.
Yeah, I don't think you need to be an athlete to go skiing, to enjoy skiing, but a general level of fitness is going to help. So at the very least, get out walking and get your heart rate up. If that's all you can do, if you can do that a couple of months before you go away, you're going to find a big difference when you get on the mountain, especially at altitude, where obviously you're starting to exercise in lower oxygen levels.
And maybe don't forget about exercising your upper limbs as well. They're very important in the skiing technique. In terms of other things apart from particular injuries, there are other things you can do to protect yourself on the slopes.
Yeah, of course. So I'm a real avid walker, and I think if you're walking uphill, you're building your leg muscles as well as your general fitness. And of course, protection on the slopes is all about what you're wearing as well, from the clothing you're wearing to the protection in terms of helmet, etc.
And also, I suppose, being aware of what's going on around you. Things like making sure you look up the piste before you start off on your
Absolutely,
slope.
Good peripheral vision. Check where you're going. If you need to stop on a slope, stop to the side. Kind of the green cross code, if you like, or the highway code of a piste.
And also, I suppose, ski within your limits.
Ski within your limits, or take a professional to help you develop further.
Oh, well, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.